Greetings, beloved. I'm Reverend Michael Malcom, founder and executive director of the People's Justice Council, as well as executive director of Alabama Interfaith Power and Light. I'm joined by my co-host, the none other than Lindsay Harper, who is the national coordinator of Arm and Arm and a fellow PJC team member. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Rev. I am glad to be here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Good to be with you. I'm excited about this podcast. I'm excited about what we stand for with this podcast. I hope that others will be excited as well. And I definitely look forward to us just being able to converse together, especially since we both ATLians and we
That's
got so
right.
much in common.
Already.
So, Liz, let's just talk. First, I want to talk about PJC. Let's just go through PJC, and I'll tell you all about the People's Justice Council. We started back in 2017. Really got our 501c3 and became a nonprofit in 2018. But we really started with the mission of engaging in equipping communities with tools and access to build power from the grassroots up. As a part of that, we actually began a relationship with US Can. US Can became our home and our starting place and still is the first family for the People's Justice Council. There I met the incomparable Lindsay Harper, and they also began Arm and Arm, and we began having some real good conversation, real good fellowship, but we got into some real good trouble. And that's what I like the most. And that's the thing that I really galvanized around that good trouble we got in because it was for community. And Lindsay was the campaign director for Arm and Arm. And then Arm and Arm came under the People's Justice Council. And when it became a part of the People's Justice Council, we partnered extremely close and extremely heavy and began to help lead together. Let me turn it over to Lindsay to talk about Arm and Arm before we get into the gooder part, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Rev. And so I'll say, yes, Rev and I have known each other for some time, long before Arm in Arm was created. I've had the pleasure of being in rooms with Rev in some of these climate justice spaces, and he is definitely a force to be reckoned with, which I'm sure you all will find out if you don't already know. I had the pleasure of being on a team. We called it the Organizing Hub back in 2019. I was part of the organizing hub in 2019, some folks, grassroots leaders that came from across the country to really ask the question and try to answer the question as to why we had not solved the climate crisis, why the climate crisis was continuing to get worse and worse and worse across the world, and what it was that we thought the solution could be. Ultimately, what we decided was that because uh, uh, racial and economic justice had not been included and built into the work to fight the climate crisis was the main reason why the climate crisis was continuing to be perpetuated. Was because we have a particular alignment and have had a particular alignment with our government and how our politics have worked. And those alignments and those groups and those people have aligned to continue to push profits over people, to continue to push, putting dirty industries in communities of color and low wealth communities, which is why you see dirty industry, which is making the climate worse, which is why you see particular communities that get flooded and flooded and flooded and flooded, or storms and tornadoes again and again and again. At some point, we have to realize that racism and greed are what's driving our climate crisis. So we came up with Arm in Arm. We felt that if people came together arm in arm across the country, across the world, across demographics, across all of our differences, that we really have a lot more in common than we have that's not in common, and that it was going to take all of us, more of us, to get involved. When I said all, what I actually meant was Dr. Erica Chenoweth had wrote a book and was able to find that historically 3.5% of any population has been able to topple dictators. It's just the math. That's how it works. And so the idea was that we could try and use these moments, trigger moments when big things are happening, either storms or, even the Target boycott, big trigger moments where people are willing, feeling a certain way, and willing to move together to kind of bring attention to the fact that the systems, the laws, the things that we allow in community are really working against us, and we need to do something else. And we call those moments of disruptive humanitarianism. We draw issue to draw attention to an issue, but then we use that opportunity to take care of community, or share information with community. Understanding that we have to continue to take care of each other, because no one's going to come and take care of us, obviously. I'm sure you all have seen that. So with that, we found that the most energy, the most capacity, that made the most sense to support ending the climate crisis centering racial and economic justice was to really illustrate how big business has been in bed with government. And in this particular instance, dirty energy companies have been in bed with big business for a long time. And because of that, um, they've been able to pass laws, and that really put business first over people, put profits first, shareholders first above people. And so here we are. We felt that the Southern Company was a great example of what that looks like. So we came up with the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign. And so with that, we work across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, because Southern Company is in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. We figured out we want to do it together. So happy to be with the People's Justice Council. It's family. So here we are.
Uh, Great, thank you. I do want to clear one thing up that you said, though, looking at the 3.5% rule. It says that if they're engaged in nonviolent resistance, I want to make sure we harp on that, the nonviolent resistance piece, because one of the things that Powerful Southern People, Not Southern Company, campaign has done is it's really centered itself in community through nonviolence, nonviolent resistance. And so when we look at the mutual aid that we've done, when we look at the various actions that we've done, when we've looked at the stances that we've taken, it's all been in a place of us being compassionate for community, but also standing together, linked arm in arm in nonviolent resistance. And we believe that if others can link arm in arm with us in that same nonviolent resistance, there, beloveds, we would be able to really shape society and shape societal behavior.
And that's exactly what it is, Rev, because what we're really trying, what we figured out, and this kind of built into the work of Arm in Arm, is this idea around like polarizing issues. There are too many people who are neutral on climate. Um, Climate science in general is under attack, even though it's the same science guides the weather, it guides medical stuff. It's all the same science, all the same math, but some people have decided that only some of it is valid and some of it is not. And so not everybody agrees on climate. Even though they see storms getting worse every year, even though the fires are getting worse every year, they still think, oh, the world's just doing, oh, the globe is just doing what it does. That's not true. The science tells us something different. And you don't even have to be a scientist to know that the climate is different. You can ask your grandmother, you can ask your mom, you might even be able to ask yourself or your friends, was the river that high last year, a couple years before? No, it wasn't. It's probably higher now, or maybe it's drier. So the idea is if we polarize climate, we're wanting people to, you got to pick a side. You have to pick a side. Us being in the middle zone, the gray area, is going to take us all out. So if we polarize it, you pick a side. And when the policies and the opportunities come down to actually make policy that makes the change that is needed to save us, folks will be behind it. So that's the idea behind the 3.5%.
You know what, Lizzie? Not, I think you're right. They're neutral on climate. One thing I have found out, um, not just in this work, but in ministry alone, people aren't neutral about suffering.
Mm.
And when it comes down to the extractive industries that we face and the damage that they're doing, in particular, looking at our energy bills, we suffer under these high energy bill prices. And in particular, we suffer under Southern Company. And so what we did was we came up with a documentary, beloveds, that is called Exposing the Unspoken, where we talk about and expose uh, some of the community reflections for Southern Company, and we look at it through the lens of powerful Southern people, not Southern Company. Leslie, I would love, love, love to hear your motivation behind getting us started with that particular documentary.
So I think it's really important as we are building the 3.5%. We are working with community, we are sharing information, we are gathering information. I'm really figuring out how to, ring the bell, let folks know that we need to move together is really around like our stories. Even though we have social media, people are still disconnected and people may not necessarily know why some of the things they're dealing with are happening. Like maybe like their bills may be high or like, why there's so many police in the street or how these things are connected. And so the idea is if we begin to share our stories, we can see that there are so many more people who are dealing with similar circumstances. And we really have to begin to share information with each other and learn from each other so that we can build ourselves as communities, local people. This isn't a top down situation. For the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign, the idea is we want to leverage the voices of people from Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. I mentioned to you Southern Company, a dirty energy company, is operating in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia through Mississippi Power, Alabama Power, and Georgia Power. We want to leverage our voices to change the narrative that Southern Company is a good company. They're a good neighbor. If you live in a state where Southern Company is operating, mind you, they do operate outside of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. However, we are, focusing on Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Then are probably aware, you may or may not be aware of like some of the things that are happening in the background around Southern Company. Like they are a for-profit company. They are a monopoly. So, because of their influence on government, they have a lot of money that they spend. I can speak to Georgia. Georgia Power is like one of the largest lobbies in Georgia, largest lobbies in Georgia. We have way too much power and influence, way too much money to shape the narrative. So again, bringing people together, leverage our voices to change that narrative. And so the idea was, well, how do we galvanize that and use that as a building block to the next step? So with that came this idea of a documentary. I'm exposing the unspoken, and it is a group, a team, a family, a community effort of people from across the country, to be quite honest with you, who all see the value and power of the lived experience of people dealing with undue, unjust energy burden across the states, understand how focusing in on a company that is literally illustrating and operating in the way that is perpetuating the climate crisis is a way to focus in on the behavior and the policies, the relationships, the systems that allow these negative things to happen to communities, so that we can make the point that we have to change how we operate in this country in particular, because the U.S. is like the worst polluter, one of the worst polluters across the globe. Southern Company is one of the worst polluters in the country. And so we have a global responsibility to do something in this country. And we want to start with Southern Company because they're one of the worst actors. So that's why we came up with the documentary. And so far, it's been shown around the country, not just in the South.
So one of the things we want to do is we want to show this documentary, beloveds. We want you all to show this documentary. But just to give you a teaser, just to give you some of what we're talking about, in the fact that Southern Company has not been a good neighbor, and those of us of courage have exposed that. Take a look at this trailer real quick.
Southern Company's relentless pursuit of wealth has left in its wake a trail of environmental devastation across an entire region of the United States.
One of the most important pieces about the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign is that we're doing it across 3 different states across the South. So many of us are suffering from the same issues with dirty energy infrastructure across our states, so we figured in order for us to fight back, it's better if we did it together.
We know that in this work, in the climate crisis, that we are up against very well-resourced corporations and power players that have vast amounts of political influence and money.
In this documentary, we're going to see how Arm and Arm is exposing damage done by Southern Company, revealing the extent of detrimental practices.
And most importantly, to tell different stories than the ones the dirty energy companies are telling us.
Arm in Arm brings to light the irreversible damage caused by this bohemian, reminding us of the urgent need for change to save our lives.
Birmingham is a predominantly Black community, and we're sick and tired of breathing this dirty air, and we're sick and tired of all the pollution coming into our waterways and into our land and ecosystems.
It's time for us all to say, enough is enough.
Now for Southern people!
Not Southern Company!
Now for Southern people!
Not Southern Company!
Man, that was awesome and amazing. I'm telling y'all, y'all need to look at this documentary. Not only look at it, but share it out. We need you to share it out. Get involved with what we're doing. So, Lizzie, we talked about one of the things that I saw in the documentary or trailer was that votes are being suppressed. But it's not just the votes are being suppressed, but communication is being suppressed as well. Our messaging is being suppressed. In particular, when you look at mainstream media, there's a censorship on mainstream media, which caused us to really look at starting this particular podcast so that we'll be able to get the word out so Southern voices can be heard. I would love to hear your reason and motivation behind not only helping to get this podcast started, but also being a co-host of this podcast.
So for me personally, I have come to realize that part of my function and what the light that I bring to this world, Lindsay Harper, is, using my voice for good cause. And I've learned too much to not say something. Through my work in Georgia, through my regional work, my national work, my international work, there are too many common threads. There are too many things happening to too many people that are too similar that, like, I'm tired of the lies. Like, stop it. The wrong people have the bullhorn. The wrong people have the funds to be able to shape things and continue the lie and to grease the slide so we can all slide off into, burn up. So no, I want to say something, and I want to promote and support things that help people understand that they're part of something much larger. But I think what's most important, I want people to understand that, like, we don't have to live this way. We are also participating in helping to perpetuate the status quo by going along with it. There are some who may not have the opportunity, the capacity, the wherewithal to go against, but there are so many more people who do, more than you think you may or may not be able to say something, do something different. Expect something different for yourself and for everyone else, from your elected officials. I think that there's an opportunity for us to rebuild community. I think that, since for the Black community, since desegregation, we're scattered, we're woven into practices, and we're participating in an economy that was never built for us. We're participating in systems that weren't built for us. So I think that we need to be able to participate in a way so that those things can serve us. We also need to, most importantly, participate so that we can build our own autonomy. We can't do that if we're scattered, we're distracted, we're not talking to each other, and people don't understand that, hey, wait a minute, you're having that same thing too, you're having that same thing too. These are the things that build community. And so this documentary, this work, these relationships that we're building, that we're, sharing, is key. I don't think we can do it without galvanizing voices. That's what this is. We got to get a bigger bullhorn. So that's what we're doing.
I mean, telling the truth. I love that. I love the fact that we have agreed to ground this podcast in truth telling. The problem that we have is that we've been fed lies. We've been fed this. We've been deceived into believing that this system was meant to work for us, and we see a select few that make it through and find some progress in the system, and we tend to point to them, and we tend to have them pointed out to us to make us feel like that this exception is achievable. But the fact of the matter is, it's not grounded in truth when you think about that, because it's not achievable for everybody. However, we are fighting, beloveds. We are fighting with every fiber of our being to make that a reality for all. But we need you all to get involved as well. And one of the ways that you can get involved is by liking, sharing, and subscribing to this podcast. We want this thing to blow up like nitro, y'all. We want it to really, really bang and really, really go big for us. And we need you all to make that happen and make that a reality. Lindsay, we've talked about some of the predatory practices of Southern Company, and we know that Southern Company is trash in a major way. And not only are we saying it, but we've listened at community voices that have said the same thing. One of the things that I want to make sure that our listeners hear is that the reason why your bills are so high is because of Southern Company's predatory practices, is because of Southern Company's ways of damaging your community while painting your playgrounds or building your playgrounds. Um, Yet they're poisoning and polluting our communities. In this documentary, as well as this podcast, we hear some real truth telling, beloveds. We hear some show enough truth telling, not only from, again, us who live in Alabama and Georgia, but those who are in Mississippi as well, who feel the brunt of what happens when bad policy meets community care. Uh, let's play this other trailer and we'll come back, and then we'll have some further discussion. How about that?
Sounds great. I definitely want to share more about these predatory practices so people know what that actually means.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace!
Southern Company's relentless pursuit of wealth has left in its wake a trail of environmental devastation across an entire region of the United States.
These folks pollute groundwater, pollute the air, just destroy the community. The most disrespectful to players, to the land, period, across the region.
Southern Company has been a really bad actor in the South for a long time. They have spent money on legislation and legislators that support anti-abortion, anti-voting, anti-climate, anti-democracy. They've even spent money on legislators that tried to overturn the 2020 election.
Southern Company, the people that power 25 states, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, is involved in voter suppression. Shame! Voter suppression! Shame!
These folks pollute groundwater, pollute the air, just destroy the community, and we're putting them on notice. We're not going to take this anymore.
Who's to hold you accountable to do right by them because you really care about us in the first place?
We decided that focusing in on Southern Company with the Power for Southern People, Not Southern Company campaign is the best way for us to illustrate who the bad actors are and how they do their bad actions and who they're impacting, and most importantly, to tell different stories than the ones the dirty energy companies are telling us. We want to tell the stories from the people who are having the experiences, who have the $500, $600, $700, $800 bills monthly that they can't pay.
Power for Southern people!
Not Southern Company.
Power for Southern people!
Not Southern Company.
So what do we mean when we say predatory practices? So let me run that down to be a little bit more specific, because one other issue in the climate world is sometimes we use words that don't resonate with people. So that's the purpose of the documentary, the purpose of this podcast, for the people, to make it make sense, okay? Predatory practices are really around, when it comes to Southern Company is a for-profit company providing something for the public, okay? So in that, their primary focus is to make money for their shareholders, okay? As a monopoly, because they're the only provider in Georgia, you know, large scale outside of electric co-ops, that is regulated, quote unquote, by the Public Service Commission, which is an elected body. Now, they're technically regulated by Public Service Commission, that is an elected body, but however, because they are the monopoly, there really aren't a lot of other alternatives, right? Um, when you are also, because you're the main, so Southern Company is the main, the only provider, they have a lot of leeway as to what they can offer, how they move. One of the things is that how they choose to spend their money, right? They spend their money again to support making money for the shareholders. So in order to make money for the shareholders, you need an environment that is kind to what you want. And what they want is to continue um, building more dirty energy infrastructure, more dirty energy plants and machinery that continues to pollute. And they do that by, I'm going to use the words of greasing the wheels with our legislators so that they are, think kindly of Georgia Power, think kindly of Mississippi Power, think kindly of Alabama Power, think kindly of Southern Company, right? The way that Southern Company makes money is by building dirty energy infrastructure. So the more coal plants, the more fracking, natural gas, nuclear energy, the more of those things they do, the more money their shareholders make. So that dirty energy infrastructure are the things that infrastructure is what's perpetuating, which is making the climate crisis worse than it has to be, fueling it, making it, extending it far beyond it needs to be, right? Because again, they are a private company providing something for the public. So the public is so far secondary. So the public service commissions across these three states are making decisions that are in favor of Georgia Power, Alabama Power, Mississippi Power, in favor of them, and they're not necessarily listening to the people. One of the issues is they say they don't hear enough from the people. Well, they put their meetings in the middle of the day or in the morning. You have to be in person, and those kinds of things. Travel, parking, time. People have to work. So the system and the players that are involved in the system it's working against us, and it is working in favor of the companies that have all the money, that have all the influence, that have all the impact. So they also use that influence and that impact to greenwash what it is that they're doing. Greenwashing is basically saying, oh no, we're clean. What we're doing is clean energy. We're making it affordable. Those are lies. Dirty energy is dirty energy. That's what it is. It's, you're putting crap in the air. You're putting crap in the water. You're putting crap in the soil. You're messing with people's health. That's called dirty energy. So stop it. Okay. So what we are doing, again, we want to bring voices together, people who have experienced these things, people who have had their $800 bills, people who had their power cut off during the pandemic. Does that sound like a public good to you? In a pandemic, people are dying, okay? At minimum, you should be able to wash your hands. I mean, you should be able to have lights. There are basic things in a pandemic that you should be able to have. The Southern Company was like, if you owe too much, you're on your own. How does that support community? That's a predatory practice. They chose money over those people's lives. I don't know how else to explain it. You tell me.
I don't even know how to tell you, honey. I don't know what. I mean, it is just crazy to me just how bullying Southern Company is to those who have been elected and have sworn to protect us, and they do whatever they want to do and get away with it. Right now, y'all, I need y'all to hear this. Right now, our bill's getting ready to go up even higher. It's already been raised in some of our states like 3 times. Well, in some states, it's looking at going up even more than that, upwards to 31%, because of what is this new infrastructure that is taking place. Georgia just uh, uh, got permitted to buy a new power plant. Alabama is looking at expanding. Mississippi has some data centers that are coming into play that are looking to expand. And then you have to look at the pipelines that go with all of these that are going under our houses because they're running through our communities. These are the things that are running your bills sky high, y'all. These are the things that you need to know about. you need to know, one, that they are not necessary, but two, you need to know that there's something you can do about it. One of the things that we want you to do, we want you to go out, we want you to share this particular documentary. Sign up for some public screenings, some private screenings. Make sure that this word gets out to everybody so that we can share this particular documentary as far and as wide as we can. We need to get the word out. There's nobody else that's going to do this for us. We've got to build out this underground communication chain so that we can still be able to get this word out and get the truth out. So please, please, please share this documentary out. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and continue to listen to us. It's only going to get gooder from here.
Yeah, that's facts. And to your point, all of this work around data centers that's happening, I know if you can hear my voice, I know you've heard something about data centers. And so the thing that stuck out to me, again, thinking like what people's priorities, what companies and governments priorities are, the amount of land and water that goes to data centers when you've got people who don't have adequate housing now and don't have access to clean water. People, right, don't have access to these things, but based on these projections, because companies have said like, oh, we're so important to the world, AI is like the only thing that's ever going to exist, and everything's going. There is a projection that has been put out about how important AI is. I'm not saying AI is not important, but I'm saying the companies are driving the narrative, and that narrative is driving projections, and those projections are driving data centers when the demand actually isn't quite there yet. And those projections are going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And so that land and that water that's going to those data centers, let's say there's a drought, let's say something's happening with the land. The way things are going, y'all, they might choose companies over people real soon when it comes to giving out or allocating or assigning land and water. When they start choosing companies, oh, no, this company needs the water because of the data center, but you got folks over here who literally cannot drink water. It's already happening, and the data centers are only going to make it worse. It's more energy infrastructure that we don't necessarily need it quite yet, y'all. So let's not slide down that slide before we have to. So that's how I feel about that.
No, that's good stuff, Lindsay. That's real, real good stuff. We again, it's unnecessary, y'all. It's unnecessary. It's driven by industry. It's driven by consumerism, and it's also driven by our human behavior. We can do something about all three of those things. We can do something about all three of those things. More to come on that. More to come on Minus AI that we're working on together. And I want to make sure that I plug in. If you'd like to be a guest of this podcast, if you would, you can reach out to Arm and Arm at the People's Justice Council. That's Arm and Arm at the People's Justice Council. If you'd like to be a guest on this podcast, Liz, last words. Is there anything else that you want to make sure the people knows before we get up out of here?
Yes, we can decide what we want our future to be. We do not have to take what we are given. I'll say it one more time. We get to decide what our future is. We do not have to take what we are given. And you will learn more and hear more about how to open up our imaginations and envision what we can be together if you continue listening to this podcast. So come on and see us for next time.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, it get real and get raw. We kept it clean on this first one because we want to make sure y'all come back. But you may want to. We may have to put down a parental advisory for this particular thing, especially when we start talking about Southern Company and some of the mess that they keep going on for us in our communities, as well as some of the other social critiques that we'll have. With what's going on in our atmosphere right now or our society right now. But as for now, listen, as always, I offer to you love, peace, and light.